welcome back to another episode of the Acquaintance podcast. Once again, this is episode, I believe, 11. It's hard to believe that it's already been 11. My name is Matt Newhall, as always, and with me again, same as last week, is the wonderful, the talented.
He's me. Jarfin Genie.
Jarfin Genie. Jeffrey Jarfin Genie Feeney.
Yeah, all our friends are still dead from last week.
Yeah, we haven't dug them out of the closet yet. We're still trying to get the coffins ordered. It's rough.
It's a whole mess.
It's
because
a process.
Like of the social distancing thing, like you would not
Really
believe
hard.
how hard it is to like resurrect bodies over like Discord. Like
it's
it
very
sucks.
difficult. You have to channel.
Apparently, it's like not that user friendly, but like whatever.
You have to channel a lot of energy. You have to pray to our digital overlords and hope that the rulers of the simulation will reload our companions rather than just letting them be deleted. So, what an intro! What an intro!
Yeah. Are you familiar with the good old the internet reviewer, the angry video game nerd, Matt Newhall?
Angry video...
AVGN?
Nope, I am not actually.
He was the first internet video game reviewer.
Oh,
Like he was like the first one to do it.
that's cool.
His show has been, it used to be a private show where he would like send it to friends and they would send it to friends, but it became popular enough that when YouTube was created, he started putting it on YouTube. So like he turns 15 next year, and like that's like a monumental like thing for a web show. He's one of the longest running web shows. I still think Red versus Blue holds the distinction of being the longest running web show.
Gotcha.
Like continuous.
Right.
He pretty famously had like someone compose a song for him, and like it was like
cool.
guitar guy Kyle Dustin, and in the theme song, the guitar guy was like behind the couch that Angry Video Game Nerd would sit on, and he'd play the guitar, and then like in like season 8, Angry Video Game Nerd is playing a video game where like you die a lot. I think it's a NES game called Ikari Warriors.
Okay. I've never heard of it.
To resurrect yourself, you have to press ABBA, and he realizes he needs 2 players, so he goes behind the couch and there is a skeleton with a guitar, so he presses ABBA and the fucking guitar guy comes back to life, and he's just like, you asshole. And it's just it's really funny. But like when you said like using powers, the
Right.
simulation resurrecting, I immediately thought of that like situation.
That's funny. But so you were talking at kind of our pre-show about new roommate situation and some other stuff. Any other changes this week, or pretty much same old? Also, how's your progress on the movies going?
I got a little further. I ended up picking like 2 or 3 like really long movies. So
any
like,
that I've heard of?
Stop. Every Which Way But Loose.
Nope.
And then the other one was Bronco Billy.
Nope.
There was a really short one that was a Kennedy assassination conspiracy tape given to me by Lieutenant Colonel Doyle Boyd before he left, before he retired. And but it's like a VHS tape, so it's like a 30-year-old like conspiracy, you know. And
That's
that one's interesting, but then it's weird because it starts out showing like a lot of his inauguration, and then like after the inauguration it goes into like his assassination, And so like we were talking about how, because I watched it I think when Jonathan came over yesterday,
Okay.
and we were talking about how like the guy was just like, here's the beginning of Kennedy, here's the end of Kennedy, and here's why it's all wrong. And but like the guy said like there was like a post-mortem autopsy done in Texas before he got to Washington D.C. To like apparently change how the bullet exit wound looked, whatever, you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and then
It's all part of the
I just
simulation,
put
man.
in an old favorite of mine that I haven't seen in a while, Volcano, starring Tommy Lee Jones and Don Cheadle.
Okay,
It's
I like
about
both of them. They're
yeah,
great.
and it's like early '90s, like so like height of
Wow.
both of them.
Don
It
Cheadle
was like
must be super young then in that movie.
he was very
I was
like at
a
first like when I watched it, I was just I saw him and I was just like, I know him and I want to say it's Don Cheadle, but he's like a little baby. He's like a little baby.
I was gonna
But it's
say.
like pre Men in Black Tommy Lee Jones and pre Hotel Rwanda Don Cheadle.
Yeah.
So but it's about like they're like the LA Transit Authority and
Okay.
how they handle a volcano in LA. And it's really stupid, but like really fun stupid.
Dude, I love like terrible movies like that. I mean, you and I both have an affinity for really shitty movies and just absolutely loving them.
Volcano for sure knows though, because like it's advertising is the what like the tagline was the coast is toast,
Oh
and
no.
it's like the review says like you'll have a hell lava time, and
Oh
just like
no.
it's very
It's like
aware.
Sharknado.
Yeah, but it doesn't go into the like straight farce like Sharknado does.
Oh, okay.
It still takes itself seriously enough where you feel like there's stakes.
Oh, okay.
But like, you ever watch the George Lopez show?
Yeah.
Remember Ernie, his neighbor?
Yeah.
Like he plays a character in it. He plays like a
Okay.
subway guy. Like he directs the subway train, and he saves everyone's life. But there's a woman who passed out, and the lava's rolling under the car. So like so it's like it's supposed to be a really dramatic moment, but it's really funny because it's like Ernie from George Lopez. He like jumps and lands mid lava and starts screaming and like throws her like past the lava for the other people to catch her, and then like he just starts melting and he's like and it's just like I know that you're trying to get me to like really give a shit, but it's fucking Ernie from
Right.
George Lopez, you know. Like
Yeah, there was I was
um
talking with Brian, who's another one of our friends, the other day, and we were talking about terrible movies, and apparently there's a Netflix original with Elijah Wood in it. It's called something along the lines of like I'm just not okay with this world anymore, or I'm just not okay with it anymore, or something like that. And apparently it's really bad, but it's like the most bizarre, like off the wall. Like Elijah Wood is like some nerd with nunchucks and like throwing stars and actually like uses them in the movie, and like
sometimes you gotta
like
sometimes you gotta
the girl ends up in a situation where her shit gets stolen, and she goes and gets Elijah Wood even though they like barely know each other, and she's like, hey, you want to help me go track my stolen stuff down? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so they go and they track down her stuff, and they walk into like some criminal mastermind shit, and it's just I
I
haven't
don't
seen
feel
it, but
yeah, I don't feel at home in this world
that's
anymore.
what it is. That's what it is. Yeah, it was a Netflix original, and apparently it is just whack. And I want to watch it just because
Right.
I feel like it's, according to Brian, he was like he loves talking about the movie, but he will never watch the movie again. And that's
Yeah,
that is the sign of a great movie right
there
there.
that was actually one conversation. The reason it took me a minute to hop onto Discord is because I was explaining like my roommate, there's a lot of
Bad
like
movies?
movies they haven't seen. And so and I'm always, as you Matt know, and like as the listeners have maybe kind of caught on to with the past couple of like movie discussions, like I really fucking like movies, so like I'm more than happy to show people like any movie at all, because like
Right.
there's no genre of movie that I avoid.
Right.
And we were talking about like some classics, like Casablanca, Citizen Kane, All About Eve and stuff. And then I talked about some movies that I would I chose to avoid. And not even like in the Tarantino episode, like the Tarantino stuff, it was more of just like that kind of thing. But there are directors and actors who I refuse to watch because of
Really?
things they did, and like we can get into that if we want to, and
Sure.
it's a good point of discussion.
Yeah.
But I said that I will take a bad movie over a boring movie any day.
Yeah, I will give you that 100%. Because and there are some that are both, and those are just, oh boy.
Those are awful.
Oh,
It's bad
boy.
and boring. It really sucks. So like my favorite book is War of the Worlds, and it's set in like the late 1800s. So like when it's turned into a movie, more often than not, it's brought up to the modern day, like the 50s or like the 2000s and stuff. But good old there was one adaptation of War of the Worlds that was actually set in like the correct time period, and it's awful, and I hate it. And it's my favorite story of all time, but it's literally like almost 3 hours, and it's bad and boring, and like I've only seen it once, and I subject myself to a lot of bad movies like regularly. So like that says something.
Speaking before we hop into that conversation of why or what directors or actors, on the topic of bad movies, have you seen the newer Netflix Mystery Science Theater stuff?
I've seen a couple episodes.
Not as good.
So
because it's what Patton Oswalt, it's
Felicia Day. They're
that's
the
right.
Mads.
It's Felicia
Jonah
Day.
Ray is the host,
Right.
and like all the puppets are like Hampton Yount and someone else, or Crow and Servo.
Gotcha.
It's fine. But like there's a lot of
doesn't have the same magic.
I grew up watching MST3K,
right? Yeah.
There's a lot of like the original charm that just doesn't
hold up well
to me.
Oh,
yeah.
Gotcha.
It just doesn't like, it's like like I could turn on any episode of Mystery Science Theater and just find at least like 20 or 30 jokes that I really like,
Right.
But and like memorize like the jokes, but
snap into a Slim Jim.
Yeah. There's like the new ones. It's weird because the new ones, like there was one episode of MST3K that like had a Rick and Morty joke, and that was really weird because it's like MST3K is still in my head, like firmly stopped in 1999.
Right.
And then so it's like, wow, that's. There was one joke that I really like where someone asks, one of the bots asks, like, radio, what's radio? And Jonah says, it's a podcast, you can't pause. And I was just like, yeah, you know what? That's a funny like way to describe that kind of stuff.
That's funny.
But like again, there's a lot of people who super duper like it. I just haven't been able to get into it.
Right.
Which is because like I watched the live stream where they were bringing it back. I helped fund it. My mom and I. It was like a really big deal bringing back MST3K.
Oh, wow.
And it's so far is the out of film Kickstarters, like shows and movies and stuff. It's the highest funded Kickstarter like of all time. Wait, no, actually,
I was gonna say Critical Role.
It got usurped by Critical Role.
Yeah.
But like one of the goals, like that Critical Role usurping it, was actually that when the animated series comes out, that the MST3K crew will riff the Critical Role episodes.
That's cool. That's actually really cool.
That was one of the stretch goals that they reached.
That's gonna be tough to do though, because it's
such
a good story. Like, because I know they riff like bad and like mediocre movies, but how do you riff a really, really good, solid story?
That's a misnomer. Because the classic MST3K guys, a lot of them run this website called Riff Tracks, and Riff Tracks riffs like Jaws and Jurassic Park and
Oh,
like the Harry
okay.
Potter movies and stuff, because they say a lot of people are just like, how can you make fun of Jaws? Like the original or the second Tom Servo, his favorite movie is Jaws, and he says,
Okay.
oh, it's super easy. Because
Yeah.
like obviously we can't make the jokes where like I think it was Mike, he was being interviewed when he was talking riffing Jurassic Park. He riffed Jurassic Park with Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh, hell
And
yeah.
yeah.
I bet that was
And
hilarious. I love Weird Al.
yeah, and then there's another movie. I think they riff Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with Neil Patrick
Okay.
Harris.
Oh, gotcha.
But
Yeah.
Mike says like obviously we can't look at the movie and say this movie's bad because Jurassic Park is
Yeah.
clearly not bad. So
Right.
you got to get a little more. You got to get a little more like idiosyncratic. Like call out like repeated things, like have like running jokes, like that kind of stuff. Just have these general.
Kind of like what CinemaSins does then. Or
Yeah.
would you call CinemaSins like the modern version of, or kind of like what?
So
I was gonna say it's hard to.
Yeah, the modern version of Mystery Science Theater 3000 is absolutely Let's Players.
Let's Players?
Like video game Let's Players.
Oh, yeah, gotcha. Okay.
That format of entertainment did not exist pre Mystery Science Theater. Like talking over something that you did not
Yeah.
create, but you are contributing to by commenting on it, one way or the
Okay.
other.
Yeah.
If you look at a lot of like the like OG Let's Players and stuff, they will straight up say like, yeah, MST3K was our inspiration.
Huh.
Like absolutely, and those people inspired other people, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Which is really funny because like the MST3K guys now get however much money for whatever, but then like PewDiePie's making like millions of dollars a year.
Yeah. Well,
Millions, if not
more than just millions. He's making
yeah.
like tens of millions. Dude is.
But I think the issue with but MST3K never presented itself as a definitive like this movie's good or bad.
Okay.
Like never. They never did.
Yeah.
They were just like we just like poking fun at movies because we like watching movies.
Yeah.
Because there are some movies that they would screen that they would not put on MST3K. Like there was one very notorious one that they always talked about but refused to say the title of because they didn't want people to look it up. But essentially, it was like a 30s movie, and it was called Child Bride. And it was about you just put two and two together there,
Huh.
and like they were just like, yeah, that's not okay. And then we're not cool with that.
Yeah.
And they actually used to not screen the movies all the way through before picking them. And then one movie, I think it was called Side Hackers, had a pretty brutal rape scene in like the third act, and they were like, fuck. And so they edited it out and then just kind of glossed over the fact. And they're also super respectful. Like
Right.
the actor Raul Julia, who played Gomez in the live action Addams Family movie, and he was M. Bison in the Street Fighter movie. He passed away like during like when MST3K was on TV, but they wanted to do one of his movies. And so like they were making fun of the movie because the movie itself is really bad, but they weren't disrespecting him. Because they were just like, you know what? No, he was a good actor. Like he's good in this, but we just,
Right.
But the problem with CinemaSins, and it's a problem that before Roger Ebert passed, he said would develop with movie criticism, is that it's not for everyone, but me as someone who has like spent years of my life dedicated to examining and dissecting film and stuff, there is an idea in CinemaSins that the higher the sin count, the worse the movie, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't agree with that, but yeah,
right. I know, but like,
Yeah.
but like that's the thing. Like, the more sins you commit, the worse of a thing you are. That kind of the terminology used, and he's not reviewing the movie.
Right.
He's just pointing things out about the movie, but he's also not making fun of the movie. And then like there are things that are sins that are just that like bad guy eating apple, like that's a sin. And so why? Why is that a sin? It's just like, yes, it happens a lot.
It's for
but
comedy.
Like it's for comedy, but like also mostly with his early ones, because I stopped watching like CinemaSins in high school. Because
gotcha.
like he released the CinemaSins for Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, I'm interested because by no means do I think it's a perfect movie, but like I really 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 like it, and like and
Right.
some of
Yeah.
his sins he wasn't paying attention, so he was like, that doesn't make sense, but like the movie explains it. And it's just like he just chose to, and that became my problem also, like why I stopped watching Nostalgia Critic. And then Nostalgia Critic ended up being just like an awful person in real life. But
Oh.
like yeah, that's a whole other woo. And so like it's really frustrating because like there are people who like have spent their whole life dedicated to like watching movies and stuff. And then when they
Yeah.
try to show like like their friends or family movies, and there's a lot of accounts of this of like people just a little older than us, where they're just like, oh, let me show you like, I don't know, like Shrek 2. Because like I like Shrek 2, but they saw like theoretically the CinemaSins on Shrek 2, and they were just like, oh no, it was there was a lot that doesn't make sense about it, and it's just like, well, why? And there are, just to give some props to CinemaSins, there are things CinemaSins points out that are really helpful to like up and coming filmmakers,
Yeah.
but because like he will point out like rookie mistakes and stuff,
Yeah.
like the like bad framing, like that's a sin, like that's
Yeah.
every theoretically the ideal movie is you could take one frame from it at any point and it would be a beautiful still image
Yeah.
in theory. That's not the case for most movies, even the best movies out there. It's not the case. um And then there's the recurring joke of the Prometheus School of Running. But like that's a good point because like in action sequences, oftentimes action movies will present really dumb situations for the audience because they don't want them to think about it. And
Right.
the idea of just like, oh yeah, I'll just turn off your brain and watch the movie. It's just like, no, I'm not going to turn off my brain. Like I'm not going to
Right.
make myself stupid to enjoy something.
Right.
And like I mentioned that in the 1998 Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie.
Oh God.
There's a scene where there's like 5 military helicopters like going after Godzilla. Godzilla takes out 4 of them, and there's one helicopter left. And here's Godzilla, and the helicopter's like running away from Godzilla. And the whole time I'm thinking, you're in a fucking helicopter, elevate, and the fucking he can't get you. He can't get you.
Right.
And then like my roommate pointed out, saying just like, well, when you're like freaked out in situations and stuff, I said, yeah, well, one, these are military people. Two, when you get your helicopter license, your reactionary like thing they teach you is to pull up like immediately because like the higher you are, the less danger you're in, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it's and I don't think I would have been able to pay attention to that if the ridiculousness of the final action set piece in
So
Prometheus happened, because the final set piece in Prometheus makes no sense.
nope.
It's not a good movie. I
No.
really like Alien Covenant, the sequel, but yeah, Prometheus is very ugh.
Yeah.
But just overall, I think what'll happen. I think the biggest problem is that, and it's not just with CinemaSins, but just other things in general, is that people will use. They'll say like, "Oh, I'm interested in watching this movie," and they'll watch CinemaSins to decide if they want to watch it. But and even if it's not a, oh, that looks really cool, I'll watch it, or if, oh, that looks really bad, I won't watch it. CinemaSins goes front to back and is full of spoilers. So
Oh
like
yeah.
it's not like you're depriving yourself of the experience of watching the movie. And
Yeah.
some movies, I get it. There are some movies that like I have to just I want in my brain, but I don't have the time to watch, either because they're really long or whatever, or this or that, all these reasons. Like I get it. But like when you're making a decision to watch every movie based off of like, oh, let's see if there's a CinemaSins of it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know.
So,
Like there's definite merits to it. He's a Tennessee guy.
yeah, they're
Like
from Nashville.
yeah.
Like yeah, they're from Nashville.
And he's real chill.
Yeah.
Like he's a real cool guy. Like really nice
So
guy.
so it's have you ever listened to their podcast called Sincast?
No.
So it's actually totally opposite of what CinemaSins is. It's literally the whole team. So there's like 5 or 6 of them that actually like kind of, and of course there's a guy that is the voice. His name's Jeremy.
Yeah.
He's the voice of CinemaSins. And it's literally just like the 4 of them just sitting down talking about movies. That's all they. And at least two of them worked at a movie theater for like 20 plus years. And so like they are very actually like in tune with the kind of film world and how this and that works. And so like their podcast is actually, I love listening to it, and they'll just analyze, not even analyze, they'll just be like, all right, let's, what'd you think about this movie? Or, in half the time they'll just they'll be on one movie for like maybe 10 minutes, and then they're like, all right, next movie.
I think I need to clarify because like I very went ranty there. CinemaSins I accept is a product not built for me. I accept
That's
that.
fair.
Like I totally understand that. And like I'm not trying to say like those people don't have a grasp of like
Right.
film and analyzing film, because they clearly do. But it's just I think my issue is that people will use CinemaSins currently, but it used to be anything. Like there's like really bad like terms where they'll just say like, oh well, like even with Roger Ebert, like, oh, Roger Ebert didn't like it, so like it's not a good movie.
I think that's always going to be the problem with critics, though. I mean, especially, I do it. If a movie comes out, I'll look at the reviews for it, or at least the rating, and if it's depending on how good or bad it is, I'll be like, oh, okay. If the reviews are great and it looks interesting, I'll probably go and watch it, like in a theater. But ultimately, if something looks interesting, I'm probably going to watch it anyway. Like, I saw Midway in theaters this last year. Overall,
about the Battle of Midway?
Yeah. Not a super great movie, but it was, I mean, it's as far as war movies go, I mean, it was okay. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it was by far, like, great. But it was something that I thought was interesting. I really enjoyed it, but I also really like I enjoy war movies in general. So it was just something where, because I think it has like a 5 point something on like it was not rated great. Critic reviews were not super great for it either. It was kind of a really mixed reviews, but I really enjoyed it. But on the flip side of that,
I definitely have never like looked at reviews before. Well, let me clarify. Like the period of my life where I saw movies consistently was the period of life where you probably saw movies consistently. It was freshman year of college, where like we would go to the football game and then leave the football game and then just go to whatever movie was just released that week.
The identical,
and we saw a lot of really good movies, and we saw a lot of really bad movies.
The
like
identical
really
Left Behind.
Yeah,
Let's see, what else did we see?
we saw, what was it? There was the one that it was like you, me, Abigail, Danielle, Emily, and Christian. It was that Idris Elba like thriller movie that I can't remember. You remember like they were in Atlanta and like Idris Elba like there was like the husband named Jeffrey, and I called as like he's gonna be the bad guy. Like, because Jeffreys are either like in movies they're either gay or bad guys, and he's not gay in this movie. I cannot remember. It was a super bland title, but like it like there's one point where she tries to call the police and the 911 operator is just like, all of our lines are busy, but she's in Atlanta. So
was that Idris Elba? Are you sure?
Yeah,
it was the.
That's the reason.
It was the
because we're like, oh, it's Idris Elba. He's great.
It was the and then she like beats him with a bat because he's like stalking her. Oh, what movie is? I know. I honestly totally forgot about that movie.
Yeah, no, I forgot about it. I just went through all my movie tickets and I saw it and I was like, "What the hell was that movie?" And I looked it up and I was like, "Oh shit!" Because like that was when I got the poster for The Martian, and I kept holding it in front of Emily's face, saying, "Just like, see, you look just like Matt Damon."
Let's see. That would have been. What year would that have been?
2014.
Is it No Good Deed?
2015. It's fall 2015. Sorry, it's fall 2015.
Was it No Good Deed?
Yes, it was No Good Deed.
2014. It was literally probably first semester of freshman year.
Awful. Terrible.
I totally forgot about. I didn't even realize that was Idris Elba either.
Yeah. But like that's the thing, like because like I used to watch it. There was a point where I was like trying to see every movie I could in theaters, and the movies I couldn't see, then I would
Right.
watch reviews of to decide if I wanted to go back. Which is
Mm-hmm.
part of the reason those reviews are the ones that had me, because there were movies that weren't released here that I went back and watched, like Babadook.
Oh,
Because of that,
such a good
because Babadook was
movie.
not released anywhere in this air part of the country, but
Yeah.
like they were just like absolutely watch it,
One of
that
the
kind of
best
stuff.
horror films ever, in my
Very good.
opinion. A really, really
Very good.
incredible horror film.
Australian cinema is definitely underlooked, in like when it comes to like examining movies and stuff.
Me and Abby, and this is Oceania related, not specifically to Australia, but me and Abby watched What We Do in the Shadows, the film,
Mm, I've
this
heard very good
week.
things. I've heard
It's
very good.
well, it's a show now.
Yeah.
The show is super popular right now, and I'd never heard of the movie, but it was Taika Waititi and Jerome, uh, J- no, Jermaine Clement,
Mhm.
and which if you've seen Moana, Jermaine Clement is the voice of Tamatoa.
He was in
He's been in a lot of things
no, but
actually.
what's the band he was in?
Oh shit, I have no idea.
It's like a comedy. Oh shoot.
I couldn't
Like
tell you,
it's a New
but
Zealand. Obviously, it's a New Zealand-based band. But like it was like a huge comedy band. Like when people talk about like comedy bands, like it's right up there with like Tenacious D. I'll look it up. You keep talking.
yeah. But we watched What We Do in the Shadows, and it's weird. It's weird. And like I'm gonna say it was good. I'm gonna say it was good. Definitely a very kind of the best way to describe it, and
Flight of
it's
the Concords.
oh okay yeah. The best way I can describe What We Do in the Shadows, the film, and I've not watched the show, but the
Mhm.
film was just really strange. Was Shaun of the Dead meets The Office is like the best way that. And those are Abby's words. That's kind of how she described it, and I was like, that is very accurate. There's some funny stuff in it, but in my opinion, it's a little long because sometimes it feels like it drags. Like some of the jokes hit really hard, but then there are like gaps between there where it's like it's interesting enough to keep you watching, but like I was also like off and on of my phone like during the film. Like
There's
it wasn't
a lot of
something where I just had to watch. Like I could just
yeah.
listen to it and be kind of distracted doing something else, and then
A lot of people really like the show. Like actually, the Game Grumps just on a recent episode talked about how they think it's better than the movie. And there's like a scene in the show where like the Council of Vampires meets, and
yeah,
everyone on the council is an actor who's played a vampire previously,
that's
like in a
cool.
different.
Yeah,
And so
because I know because I looked up the cast for the show, and at some point both Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi show up as their characters from the film. I don't know at
uh,
what point, but
in
they do. It's because they're in the cast list for the
uh,
show.
Mark Hamill is like a recurring character.
Yeah, I saw he was
Yeah.
on the cast list, and I was like, that's amazing.
And then like I think the head of the Vampire Council who has to like Skype in is Wesley Snipes. So
Incredible. And yeah, we didn't start the show because we were both like one of those movies where you finish watching and you're like, man, that was a funny movie, and then you really think about it and you're like, was it funny? I think it was funny. Um,
yeah, I
well-
yeah, that's actually it's really funny. Did you ever see Us?
yes, love that. I love that movie.
So like I also like I saw it in theaters. I really liked it, but like when I sat down and thought about it, that movie doesn't make any sense.
No,
but like if you're like enjoying it, like you very clearly, oh, like this is cool, this is suspenseful. Like I even had an Us nightmare the other night, and it was like really
Yeah.
like freaky because I was just like it was like for whatever reason I was at Riverdale and everyone was wearing red jumpsuits, and so I had to like fucking knock out someone Indiana Jones style and like get a jumpsuit that fit my size.
Oh my God.
And like it was just it was very interesting. But yeah, that's a movie where like if you try to put like logic behind it, it's just kind of like, was it even a good movie? And then you watch it and like, yeah, I like this movie, but then like afterwards you're like, did I like this movie?
Right, yeah. Because that was I don't know if we. No, we talked about Ari Aster last week, right? In my opinions on Midsommar.
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. I was like, I'm pretty sure we talked about that, so I'm not going to touch on that again. But Midsommar was another movie where I watched it, thought about it, and was like, that was a really like aesthetically pleasing, creepy, grotesque movie. I'm never watching that movie again. It was just
Check out last week's podcast for all the dirty deets on Midsommar. Coming at you fast.
Which
this summer.
Pretty sure we only talked about it though for like maybe like 10 minutes. So,
that was a treat. That was a treat for the YouTube viewers right there.
Yeah, I saw that. Trying not to comment on that, but
yeah.
it
I
happened.
love aesthetically pleasing movies, like visually beautiful movies, like the Leonardo DiCaprio Great Gatsby movie. That's
Beautiful.
a pretty movie.
Yeah.
That's a very pretty movie. But like it's also like an adequate adaptation of Great Gatsby. It's just like
yeah, that's same. But so anyway, kind of we can circle back. What directors or actors do you refuse to watch? I'm curious. I'm actually just very curious.
There are three in particular.
Actors or directors?
Two directors, one actor.
Okay.
And there are more in my head, I'm sure, but there are ones that like the front of my head, like I will. There's one that I'm on the fence about. His name is Roman Polanski.
I think I've heard of him.
He did Rosemary's Baby.
That's why I've heard of him.
Yeah. But apparently there was like some allegations for a long time that he had sexual relations with a minor. And he like legit fled the country. The Academy of Film just like fucking like kicked him out and everything.
Oh.
But some people have said, and like apparently there's sources where the minor's just like, oh yeah, I totally lied, like I faked it, that kind of thing. So I need to do some more research to find out like where I stand. His is definitely the most ambiguous because his is one that I heard about like third hand.
Oh, gotcha.
The other two I like had direct revelations of and just understood. The other one is one of the most famous living film directors right now in America. It's Woody Allen.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people really like him. A lot of people, and it's really funny because like in
what all has he directed? Because I know the name, but I can't think of any films off the top of my head.
He's done like I think Annie Hall is his biggest one, but like he just like he just there's a lot of like names. I've never watched any of them, but
Gotcha.
What it is there'd be like in the film major, people would like tear down Roman Polanski, but they would excuse Woody Allen just because Woody Allen was Woody Allen. But Woody Allen, him and his wife adopted a young girl, like a little baby, from China, and when that girl turned 18, Woody Allen left his wife for his adopted daughter.
Okay.
Yep. And so like there are people like there are people there's like a little blacklist saying just like there are actors who are still working with Woody Allen. And there are actors like I think Jeff Goldblum and Scarlett Johansson got in a lot of trouble because like they were trying to defend him and then they were just like don't.
Yeah.
And like I do not care for him, and I have no desire to ever watch any of his movies.
Yeah. I think the only movie that looks like I've seen by him, it's actually a movie I really enjoy, is Midnight in Paris with It's got Owen Wilson in it, and I think Gwyneth Paltrow. Nope,
Well, and
Rachel. It's Rachel McAdams. It's
like that's the
Owen
thing.
Wilson, Rachel
Like,
McAdams, Kathy Bates, Mike. Nope. And then those are the three, the like, your A-list cast.
for all intents and purposes, he's a very good director.
Yeah.
But like, I just don't want to, if I ever watch
Right.
those movies, those are like, and you know me, how I feel about like bootlegging and torrenting and all that stuff.
Right.
That's the shit I torrent.
Yeah.
Just purely so I have an understanding when it comes to film history, but
Okay.
so he gets absolutely no money.
Yeah, I think the only one that I have seen is Midnight in Paris. That's the only movie, which that came out in 2011, and it looks like he has a couple of writing credits, as well as writer and director credits, but only it looks like the latest one that I've at least heard of was Irrational Man in 2015. There's been a few since then, but I've never heard of them. It's probably because of what happened.
Yeah, it's been harder and harder for him to get work. Like when he wanted to publish his biography, like he was told no by like a lot of publishing houses. They were just like, "Fuck no,
Man,
fuck off."
yeah. I don't blame him though.
The one just to clarify, he doesn't blame the publishing houses. Like he's not saying like I don't blame Woody Allen for.
Oh yeah, no,
like,
yeah. Okay, yes. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, because like in my head I knew what you were talking about, but I just had to think. I was just like, okay, yeah, I don't want anyone to think that suddenly Matt was like, yeah, you know what, I'd marry my daughter, if she was hot. That guy's like, ugh, ugh. But the one that is, in my opinion, the most egregious, who's a director was involved. I think his name was Bernardo Bertolucci. It was a movie called Last Tango in Paris.
Never heard of
which is from I think the late 70s.
Okay.
But it stars Marlon Brando.
Okay.
Who is widely considered one of the greatest actors of all time.
Right.
Godfather, Speaker of Desire, Apocalypse Now, all that stuff.
Right.
All movies that I've not seen.
It's the same. I've never seen any of them either, so I'm right there with you.
But there is like in the movie there's like a rape scene, and those are always very delicately handled when it comes to plays and stuff. Because like it's got to be safe.
Unless you're Evil Dead and then you use a tree.
Well, no, even then, like that scene was like they were like constantly making, and then Sam Raimi has straight up said that if he could remake that movie, he would not put that scene in there because he said the only reason he put it in there was shock value, and he just didn't really at the time, like, because he was like
it was the
80s,
20s. Yeah, and this was like the early to mid 80s.
No, it's not 81, I think.
Oh, it was okay.
Yeah, because the original short film he made, The Woods, was 79.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, he said like he just it was just very much a like yeah, you know what, I didn't, which is actually why a lot of people were really upset with them including it in the remake, because they were just like,
I never watched the remake. Never watched the remake.
It's fine. It's not. It's fine.
See, I think the problem, like why the remake didn't take off, is because they tried to go serious with it. The success of the first one was not. It was because it was so over the top, so ridiculous. It became like it was taking itself seriously, but in a way that was like comically bad.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like and then they saw that, and then for Evil Dead 2, they just fucking put their money on the table. Yeah, and it was just like, all right, we'll do that instead. Yeah, we're gonna be a comedy horror film instead of just a straight horror film that people laugh at.
Yeah,
and like the new one definitely took itself very seriously. There are moments in it that are really cool, like the original poster for Evil Dead, like the woman getting sucked into the ground. Yeah, that's in the new movie.
Oh, that's cool.
And so like that's cool. And then there's references, and then there's the post-credit scene where Ash just kind of turns towards the camera and goes groovy, because
You're just throwing
the
that in
idea
there then
was
at that point.
yeah, the
'Cause
idea was that Ash and the protagonists that survived the remake were going to team up against Deadites, but that's all aside. Which, by the way, I have an update on the fucking Evil Dead 2 board game
oh no.
that I think
Okay.
like that. It's actually really that we'll get into that if it's okay after I finish Marlon Brando. And
Yes. I was gonna say let's circle back anyway. So
yeah. So
because then we could jump into Evil Dead.
you've got to be very careful with rape scenes and stuff.
Yeah.
Bernardo Bertolucci elected to remove the rape scene from the script for the actress, and when she was alone on set, turned on the camera and had Brando act out the scene, but she was under the impression that she was being assaulted by Marlon Brando for it being real. And they essentially said, that's fucking Marlon Brando, so if you say anything, we're going to ruin your career.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And so it's just like, and there's a lot of Brando apologists out there saying like friends of Brando.
So
who were very much like,
did Marlon Brando know that?
Well, okay, so
did he know that her part in the script was removed?
So here's the discourse, because like some people who were friends of Marlon Brando said, yeah, no, he totally thought she was aware, but she was purposely putting herself in a compromised position to give a better performance. That's how people. But everyone that knew her said like, no, that's absolutely not what happened.
Okay.
But now all three are dead.
Right. I was just saying you can't.
So it's just like it's just definitely one of those things where it's like. I can totally see. I think it's way more believable in my head because like Brando became famous for his role in Streetcar Named Desire, and in that movie he rapes someone, and so like he could very well think, oh well, like even rationale, just like there's like a reality to like that kind of stuff, and just but yeah, apparently also Marlon Brando is just a big old freaking jerk.
Gotcha.
But like, yeah, I'm not too keen on watching any Bernardo Bertolucci or Brando movies where I have to like pay money for it.
Gotcha.
So Evil Dead, you're getting into we're getting funny now. Like we've moved past the serious. Yeah,
I was gonna say I know you and I both could talk about Evil Dead probably for a long time. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing before you dive into the board game, while we're just on the topic. I'm curious, and you would probably know this before I would. Would you say that the Evil Dead trilogy was the birth of the comedy horror genre?
No, but it is the birth of the comedy horror genre as we know it.
Okay.
Just like how like the first, like the original Night of the Living Dead was not the first zombie movie,
right?
But the things it implemented changed zombie movies from then on out.
Okay.
Because you had movies like You'll Find Out and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein and like
but would
those
you
kind of movies?
Because now Young Frankenstein.
That was a little different.
I was gonna say because that's like
straight satire.
Yeah, okay, that's because that's like more like comedy. Now I haven't seen the Abbott and Costello one. I haven't seen the You'll Find Out, so I don't know how.
Yeah, they're older movies, like from like the 30s and 40s.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so they're very different. But like Evil Dead definitely implemented Evil Dead definitely opened the door for Ghostbusters. Gremlins,
right?
Fucking Peter Jackson's early stuff.
Okay.
Like all those movies are very like over the top comical horror, and they all had their inputs, but like that sort of thing.
Well, just quick comment on Gremlins, and because we mentioned it like 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were talking to Alex. On HBO Max, both Gremlins and Gremlins 2 are on HBO Max. So you can watch both of them.
I was the Christmas movie too.
I was scrolling through because we can talk about this later too, but I mentioned this earlier today when we were just talking. I finished Fellowship of the Ring, the book, and watched both the first movie, and I watched Two Towers because I have been on this obsession with Tolkien, and so I just needed to consume.
Not a bad obsession.
I needed to consume as much at a time, and when I was scrolling, and the only place that it's streaming now is on HBO Max, because they took it off of Netflix because HBO. And so I had to find out that's, and through my cable I have HBO. But when I was scrolling looking for Lord of the Rings, I saw Gremlins and Gremlins 2, and I was like, excellent.
Quick note about Lord of the Rings before we get back to Evil Dead. It's something I actually recently found out. As you may know, Amazon is doing like a Second Age series of Lord of the Rings.
That's right.
Like before the One Ring,
yes.
You know, like so like the flashbacks with like Elrond and Isildur and all that stuff. That's the era. Amazon has already dedicated $1 billion to that show's production.
Wow. Probably because of film locations, mostly travel and.
So there was like a lot of questioning because it was just like, oh well, what's it? Is it because ideally it would be in line with the Peter Jackson movies, but like all that stuff, that kind of thing. But apparently there was a lawsuit between the Tolkien estate and Warner Brothers over like things that were done in the Hobbit movies. And Amazon settled the lawsuit. So not only did they get the rights from the Tolkien estate to do the Second Age, but they got the assets from the Peter Jackson movies.
Oh, God.
So, like, in theory, when we see Minas Tirith in the Amazon series, it will look like Minas Tirith in Return of the King. That kind of stuff. Cool. So.
That's cool. Anyway, back to Evil. So we can do the comedy horror, kind of circle back to where we had left off.
Give for those people who don't know, give like a quick little just a rundown of Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness. Because like I know you were watching those movies before I ever touched them. So
Evil Dead. So very, very brief, quick synopsis. Group of college kids goes out to a cabin in Tennessee. It's actually set and based in Tennessee. And come to find out, this cabin was owned by like a researcher of some sort, yada, yada, yada. They find a book that is called the Necronomicon. When they're looking through the house, they find, they come upon this book, all written in Latin, and it's actually been a while since I've seen it, so a lot of this.
Okay, so in the first movie, just some discrepancies. The first one, it's actually, they don't say Necronomicon, it's the Daemon Naturum.
Okay.
Because and that's why it's a little Latin. Because in the second one, then it becomes a very famous like face cover with like the demon script and stuff.
But like I said, it's actually been a minute since I've seen them. I've seen Army of Darkness many times, but the first two were really hard to come by. Army of Darkness, the easiest one to come by.
It's also the easiest one to watch because it's the least horror, and it's like definitely more action than horror.
It's more action, horror, comedy kind of. Anyway, so these teenagers come across this book, they read out of the book, perform an ancient ritual, they wake up evil demon spirits. Some of the teens become possessed. They have to kill, basically kill off the teens. Something happens where Ash, which is the main character, is the last one left at the end of the first movie. Or is there one other survivor?
Okay, so no, at the end of the first. So one thing that Evil Dead does a really good job of, it's the same thing that Alien does a really good job of, is that you don't know who's going to be the survivor until they're the fucking survivor.
Yeah.
Because like Ash does not start the movie as blatantly the main character.
No.
Like he's
it is the teens, it is the teenagers, then all of them, the group.
But he has that, he gets the pencil in his ankle.
That's right. He gets stabbed,
and then the bookshelf falls on him. And Bruce Campbell has said that's the biggest bookshelf we had, so we just had to make it work. And it's like a real fucking, like, for those of you who will watch the movie, the bookshelf is
ridiculous.
And by
Maybe
ridiculous,
4 feet tall,
very, very
like
light and tiny and like nothing. But he's like struggling like it's made of solid oak, and he's like. And then the movie ends where it's like daybreak and all of his friends are dead and he's slowly wandering, and then there's that famous shot of the camera
bridge
going through the cabin, and then he turns around and then it's
and
like
the door slams.
the movie
That's
ends.
right. Yeah, that's right. And then the second movie, Dead by Dawn, is Evil Dead 2: Dead by Dawn. It starts off with kind of does a little bit of backtracking because it does a very brief recap of kind of the first movie, and that's one thing I give excellent credit to. For you could watch any 3 of these movies and know exactly what's going on no matter what order you watch them in. You do not have to watch 1, 2, 3. It helps, but you don't need to. It's something that is not necessary.
There's a common misconception with a lot of people where they're just like, oh yeah, Evil Dead 2 is just a higher budget remake of Evil Dead. And it's like, no.
No,
like
it's not.
10 minutes of Evil Dead 2 are definitely Evil Dead.
Yeah.
But like after those 10 minutes, like we get that hit with Ash, and then like everything's different from then on.
Yeah. So Evil Dead 2, you get like a 10-minute recap of kind of what's going on. And then it's Ash just at the cabin, and then the family of the researcher that the book belonged to shows up.
It's now called the Necronomicon.
Yeah, now it is not called the Necronomicon. And those people show up. It's like there's the daughter of the guy, and she's basically looking for her dad. And she's like, this is the last place that we knew him at. You know, this is where we're gonna look for him. And they come upon Ash, who is just chilling in the cabin, and they're like, what the fuck? And he's like, there's some weird shit going on here. Some more demonic stuff happens, some shit in the cellar happens. Ash's hand, just his hand, gets possessed. He has to cut it off, and then he battles his own hand, about midway, probably at the beginning of Act 3, is when he puts the chainsaw on his hand and develops a device where he can activate he puts like a little hook like on his shirt to where he can just take the chainsaw and just push his hand forward, and it starts the chainsaw. Because he had to cut his hand off because it was just his hand was possessed. And slowly but surely, all of the does anyone die? I don't think any of the family die. Do they?
All of them.
Okay, so
because at the end it's just the daughter, but then the
that's
daughter,
right.
I think what happens is one of the demons just takes the Kandarian dagger and just ganks her.
That's
and,
right.
Like fuck, and then he gets sucked.
That's right. Yeah. So more Necronomicon portal stuff happens. Come to find out, the girl's mom is buried in the basement and is secretly like this really hideous demon. And that's right, because the assistant gets possessed. Then it's the assistant and the mom of the daughter. So I guess the wife of
Jake is the assistant, and then the good old reliable Jake, and then there's
that's
like,
right.
Ed.
That's right. Good old reliable Jake. And then so the wife of the man who was doing the research on the Necronomicon and all that. Anyway, a portal opens up.
His name is Professor Nobi, if you want to.
Okay. Yeah. And a portal opens up. Ash gets sucked in and thrown back into like the 16. It's unspecified.
No, it wasn't. It's further back than the 1600s.
Yeah,
it's the past.
It's like it's like medieval times, because there's like a castle and sword fighting and
very generic, random part of white Europe.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's the end of the second movie. The third movie is just pure awesomeness. So along with Ash, his car also gets sucked back into the past.
Rightfully so.
So he's in the middle of, as we said, unspecified medieval white Europe, and with him, he has a chemistry book from like one of the kids that he learns he learns how to make like bombs or something out of like
gunpowder and shit.
like something you would never be able to learn from like a chemistry 101 book. He's like, oh yeah, I know how to do that. And
this is the man who engineered a chainsaw that can run without gasoline. So
Yeah.
like, I'm pretty sure like people talk about MacGyver. Like fuck MacGyver, man.
But the kind of plot of the third one is, so the reason that the book was hidden away is it wasn't supposed to be found, because the book can basically open a portal to the demon. Also unspecified. We don't know if it's hell. We don't
slash hell slash
just demons of some sort of undead like thing. Opens a portal to that, or lets the other side come into our existence and try and take over. Whatever. And Ash has decided to task himself at preventing this from happening. But he also talks with like an old sage. It's not a wizard, but he's like this old sage dude. Ash replaces his chainsaw hand with like, oh yeah, he manages to invent a metal working robotic prosthetic in medieval times.
which at first is just like, okay, that's kind of silly, but like that actually has a historical precedent, not with as much maneuverability as he had, because it's straight up like a Luke Skywalker hand,
right?
But there like was a guy, and like Jonathan knows his name, I think, or at least he's the one that told me about him, who had a prosthetic that was strong enough to hold a sword but delicate enough to write with a like feather. And so like that happened. So
okay, that's kind of cool
shocked.
then.
I was just like, oh wow. So like the least realistic thing about Army of Darkness is actually not least realistic.
Right, yeah, exactly. But the thing about Army of Darkness is it is, and I think we've mentioned this before in a past podcast, littered, and I mean littered with one-liners. The entire movie is basically just one-liner punchlines, and it is glorious. It is fantastic. And long story short, Ash saves the day, gets teleported back to his own period of time where he works at a grocery store, specifically hardware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it?
Name's Ash. Hardware.
Yeah, there's some variations where there's like the aisle as well.
Yeah.
But like I can't.
Yeah. And then he's like, "Hail to the king, baby," which is
so. I want to add in like my little sprinkles of things.
Yeah.
Some interesting.
I did a very brief recap of
that. No, you did great. Like you did great. There's just some like little fun facts I wanna throw in. The car, Ash's car, is Sam Raimi's personal car. That is in all of Sam Raimi's. Yeah, it's in all of his movies. Like Ash's car is the same car that Uncle Ben drives in the Spider-Man movies.
I can totally see it.
Yep.
Can totally see it.
And then Sam Raimi did like an old West movie, and they're like, "How are you gonna put the car in there?" And so he just took the fucking car apart and put built a wooden carriage on top of the undercarriage of the car, and like used it in the movie. It's been the same car, the same. It's been.
Wow.
It's not even. I'm not even saying it's like it's the same model. It's legitimately the same car he's had.
Wow. So he's had that car for like. Oh boy, he's had that car for a long.
Sam Raimi fun fact. Even in Oz the Great and Powerful, like it's in there. Like it's driving around in Oz. It's just, and like in the Evil Dead remake, it's in like the garage of the cabin. Like none the characters didn't drive in it, but you know, that kind of thing.
Is it in the Jungle Book? Oh, he might just be an actor in that one. Apparently, he's a giant squirrel in the Jungle Book. Let me see. Is it movies he's directed or written?
Movies he's directed.
Directed. Okay.
But also the ending of Army of Darkness was changed, and I'm sure you've seen like the alternate ending. Because to get into the future, what they do is they seal Ash in a cave and they give him a potion where
That's
it's just
right.
like drop this like 3
Yes,
times
I
on your
have
tongue.
seen. I have seen the alternate
Yeah.
ending. Yes.
And he accidentally drops it 4 times, and then so like he wakes up and like it's post-apocalyptic London, and he's
Yeah.
like he's just like no, because the guy can't catch a break. Ash also has a lot of really neat little comics things. There's one where he crosses over into the Marvel Zombies universe, which is
That's
just the normal
amazing.
Marvel universe until the zombies hit, and then he gets killed by Zombie Howard the Duck, and then another Ash comes in and like saves the day. Then he goes to the Marvel Werewolf universe, where it's the same thing as the zombie universe except everyone's werewolves. But probably the most well received Ash Williams Evil Dead comic is that I can't remember which Friday the 13th movie, but it's one of it's like 6, 7, or 8. In the basement of the Voorhees house is the Necronomicon and the Kandarian dagger.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
so the implication is that
Is-
Mrs. Voorhees used that to bring her little boy Jason back, and that's why he just can't fucking die. Movies
Oh,
never went anywhere with it, but the comics are like, cool. Let's do Ash versus Freddy versus Jason.
that's cool.
And like they do, and then and like Freddy wants the Necronomicon because he's just like, if I can get a hold of the Necronomicon, I'll kick ass. And then there's Ash versus Jason versus Freddy, the Dream Warriors, where the survivors of all the Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th movies team up with Ash in a pseudo Justice League. And, like,
Hell
Ash is, like, a
yeah, dude,
Superman,
that's
and they
amazing.
like fight like the armies of Deadites in like Washington D.C. and it's just
That's awesome. See it's such a franchise that I mean it's definitely got a cult. It's got a cult following to it, but it fits into tons of different genres. Like it's comedy, it's horror, it's adventure, it's like comic books. I mean, perfect material for comic books. I mean, it's. I'm so happy at how far it's come, and I discovered this trilogy through my brother when I was 14. I think I was 14.
Yeah, I remember because it was definitely freshman year of high school because I remember the day after you saw Evil Dead 2, like you were immediately talking to me about it, and I never heard of it. But I had seen Army of Darkness because like you can watch Army of Darkness and not know about the Evil Dead movies and just think Army of Darkness is its own movie.
Yeah, because it makes
it's not
zero.
Evil Dead 3 or anything.
It makes zero mention to the previous two movies, and that's what I was saying earlier. You could watch all of these movies as standalone movies, and they're wonderful. They're all great.
There's just a couple other things. I never saw the Starz series Ash versus the Evil Dead.
I've seen a few episodes. I've never seen the full thing through. I've seen a few episodes. It's on Netflix. So
I've heard it's really good. I just haven't.
The few episodes I saw were they were fantastic. I mean, Bruce Campbell is as Bruce Campbell as could ever be. I mean, and it is, it is absolutely the perfect Bruce Campbell that you could ever want.
And then there's Evil Dead the Musical as well, which is
I have seen, and you have a chainsaw arm from it.
Yes, I actually think
a foam chainsaw.
I kept the pins and I gave Joshua the chainsaw arm because he was definitely more.
Yeah.
But like, I still have. I can't remember which hat I have the pins on.
It was your Lucky Charms hat that had all the pins on it.
Yes, because it's the one with Ash and he's holding on to Linda on it. Yes, it's on that hat. That one's a lot of fun.
They got great music. The music in it too is fantastic.
It's really funny because I went to a theater conference where a lot of colleges were doing like numbers from their shows, and Evil Dead the Musical was one of their shows, and like one of the Evil Dead the Musical is way more campy than any of the other Evil Dead stuff.
Yes, I mean it's a musical, so I mean it kind of has to be, but it's beautiful. So good.
The finale of like Evil Dead the Musical, it really like it like ends and then starts back up and then ends and then starts back up and stuff.
Yeah.
But the problem was a lot of people in the audience didn't know like what the Evil Dead musical was supposed to be, so they thought it was just like a really shitty musical, and so it's just like no, it's
Oh,
supposed to be like overacted which is everything. But Evil
yeah.
Dead 2, the board game. Now
Yes.
let me give a
Yeah, because this has
so
been something that's been in the works for
4 years.
years. I was about to say,
Well,
long time.
way back when, I'm a big supporter of kickstarted board games. I kickstarted both the Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 board game by Cryptozoic, and it was super cool. Um, got loads of miniatures. They had like rights to all aspects of Ghostbusters. So like
No, that's
the
actually
not
really
only
cool.
the movie Ghostbusters, but the cartoon Ghostbusters, the extreme Ghostbusters, the video game Rookie.
Wow.
Like they were
Damn.
all like they're all in the game.
That's really
And
cool.
it's very cool. And there was even like there was like a random episodes of Ghostbusters. They would include those characters and the Ghostbusters toy line, which was not in any of the movies or cartoons or anything. They would include characters from that as well. It was just a very in-depth like love letter to Ghostbusters. But it's a campaign game. And then there was a Ninja Turtles game I also backed. Which was really, really cool. And then I was just like, cool, cool, cool. And then a company called Space Goat Productions said, we got the rights to Evil Dead 2, and we're going to do Evil Dead 2. And I was like, oh, sweet. So
Specifically Evil Dead 2.
yeah, yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Evil Dead 2. So I backed that board game, and they, they got fully funded and everything, and then they talked about how like they found like the original cabin in Tennessee and they were gonna like carve dice out of it and like
Right,
sell them
yeah.
because I told you about
Yeah,
that.
I
They were like,
remember
yeah,
you telling me about that, yeah.
and all that, and so everyone was stoked. And then like the time for like production was supposed to start, and they said there was some hiccups, and which is what happens. Like all the like the Ghostbusters board game was delayed like 10 months, because it's just reasonable, because like you can have the idea for all the miniatures and stuff, but you
Yeah.
still got to get approval, and like if the miniature
Mm-hmm.
breaks easily, like it totally it was completely acceptable frame of time. And then the owner of Space Go Productions started another Kickstarter for a Terminator board game, and everyone was like, okay, what about Evil Dead 2 though? Like we don't even have
Yeah.
anything from that yet. And he was just like, yeah, I know, but like the Terminator, like our rights to it are gonna go soon, so we want to. It's like fine, fine, fine. Some people kickstarted that as well. I did not, because I had an inkling where I was just like, I'll wait. I
Yeah,
don't mind
something's a little fishy.
yeah. And then contact started like dying, and then there was nothing for like a year.
Oh
The guy
no.
deleted his Twitter and everything.
Uh-oh.
Then he posted and said like, "Hey, we're regrouping. The Terminator Kickstarter, was successful, and the Evil Dead 2 Kickstarter was successful, but like there's some issues we've been running into, and like but like we I would love to open an offer for you that we've opened up Space Goat to be like publicly traded, so you can buy stakes in the company." And that's when everyone was like, "Oh, okay, that's yeah," because that's like an old trick when like you're
Right.
kind of ripping people off, where you're just like, "Yeah, totally," like just buy, you can be like a part of the Space Goat team, that kind of thing. And then he like just disappeared off the planet.
Damn.
So the company he was working with on the Terminator board game got a lot of like people, because like he and Space Goat disappeared. But the company with the Terminator board game was talking to him, and they were just like, "Hey, listen, we tried to like deal with him, and he just is MIA." And then he was discovered he was selling the little bit of Evil Dead 2 stuff that was made on eBay.
Oh.
Um, and then and I think currently right now he has like a Patreon, so he can teach, because he was a comic book artist, so he can teach people like how to create their own comic book. But like everyone in the industry right now is straight up saying like, yeah, don't fucking work with this guy, because like apparently he's had a long history of like ripping people off.
Damn.
And so then a board game company called Jasco Games says, hey, we got the license for Evil Dead 2 and we're sending out the invitation to all the people who funded the original board game. And all the people who originally funded the board game was like, don't even, nah, fool me once, shame on me. You know, that kind of thing. It's just like, or shame on you, fool me twice. And so we didn't do it. And then it got fully funded, and we were all the original backers were just kind of like, all right, whatever. And then an email from Jasco gets sent out, and they said that the part of the original goal was to not only get enough money to fund the Kickstarters, but for every backer of the original campaign
to get refunded,
to get the game as well.
Wow.
And so, but again, everyone was like, okay, words are cheap.
Yeah.
You know, cheap. But as of last week, I received my copy with an add-on that cost me $0.
Wow, that's cool.
I was blown away. I was just because what they said for those of you who don't know, board games
very expensive to make.
You know, and like $20 and you got a board game.
Yeah.
Like a lot of board games are very expensive.
Yes.
And the community is really fucking tight knit. Mm-hmm. And they said with Space Goat and all that shit, it caused a lot of ill will in the community. So there were a lot of board game companies that didn't feel comfortable kickstarting stuff because of what happened with Space Goat. So they said like, we're doing our best to amend that. And so like legitimately they were just like and so like I got the bonus and like the Evil Dead 2 thing. I went through the whole thing, all the miniatures and stuff everything I paid for in the original Kickstarter, I got.
That's cool, dude. Hell yeah.
So like I was so, and it didn't cost me any additional money. Like they were just like, just make sure your address is still the same on Kickstarter and we're good.
Wow.
And they've been super responsive to people and everything. And like it was just, and even and like during the pandemic, they're still getting these like board games out and stuff. So like it's just like it's definitely something for a couple of years that was like really a sour tale, but it has a really happy.
That's good. Yeah, that's always nice, especially when you do, you know, when you get bit, and then someone comes along and is like, I'm not gonna bite again, and they don't, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that's sweet,
yeah,
cool. How does the game look?
It looks great. I would go. I don't know how the Wi-Fi is in the garage. Otherwise, I'd go get it.
No, you're fine.
It's really cool. The cover of the game is the Necronomicon face.
Hell yeah!
So it's just like that. It's got these like tiles for characters. All the characters, like all your major Evil Dead 2 characters are there. Like the hand has a piece.
Incredible.
Applehead, like the big face at the end that he takes the chainsaw to the eye of.
Right,
like,
yeah.
That piece is huge. It's massive.
Okay.
You know, there's also like it comes with like 25 just deadite pieces, just standard deadites. It comes with possessed deer and squirrel pieces.
Oh, that's cool.
Like the shotgun and the chainsaw and the dagger all have their own like pieces because they can be found on the map, kind of like Clue, where it's like, oh, let me pull that, and it's very, and like the ash piece, it looks like Bruce Campbell, you know, and it's got like he's like pointing the gun and he has the chainsaw up like this and everything, and then there's also possessed Ash is also a piece that you can like fight him too, because like at any point any character can become possessed and become a deadite. Because like that's what happens in the movies,
right?
And so like you gotta avoid that kind of stuff. From the gameplay I've seen, I've not played it, but from the gameplay I've seen, it has a lot of harkening back to Last Night on Earth. Did you ever play that one?
I didn't. No.
It's where like there'd be a team of humans and a team of zombies.
Oh, okay, like, no, I have played this. Yes.
Okay, yeah. And there's a lot of that kind of feeling.
Okay.
And it's very the board itself is just a standard board. Like unlike the Ghostbusters games, have like these multi-purpose tiles where it comes with like 40 tiles, but like the ways you can customize it are just like completely endless, that kind of thing. You can have a 4 tile space, or you can use all 40 and have like a huge map, like that kind of thing.
Wow.
Like how on a Betrayal, a House on the Hill,
Yeah.
like the house can just get huge, or
Yeah.
it can stay very, very tiny.
Right.
Like it
Yeah.
depends on the game you play, that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. So yeah, very pleased with it. They even included a free card. They have this game called Universes, and and versus is spelled like Versus, and all of the licenses they've created like a card game where it's like multiverse, where it's like you can like fight each other. So Universes includes the cast of Cowboy Bebop,
Ooh.
Mortal Kombat
Oh
characters,
my God.
Ash, and then like a couple other people too, where it's just like, and like part of me is just like, oh, I could really get into that. I haven't looked much into it, like
Yeah.
if it's like easy to learn and stuff. But yeah, it's just very. I was very impressed and very happy with how Jasco Games and the other company that I can't remember the name of, because they worked with the other company, they got all the original assets from the first game too. So
Yeah.
like the models that the first group of Kickstarters approved,
Yeah.
like were the ones they got to use, like that kind
Oh,
of
that's
stuff. And so
cool.
it's yeah, I was very very happy because legitimately it was like, okay, like I wasn't gonna hold my breath, and then one day it was just on the front porch, and I opened it and it was there, and I checked it and all the pieces were there and all the pieces were
Wow.
great, and like I was just like, yeah, this is great. I'm
That
very very pleased with how this story ended.
right, right. That's so cool. Um, 'Cause since we're kind of coming to the Evil Dead close, I want to jump back over to at least Fellowship of the Ring,
Oh
Tolkien.
yeah, absolutely. Tolkien, I
So
can, yeah. Let's go.
I only so I listened, and it's funny because I remember a couple weeks ago I had talked about, I'd gotten into Audible and all that stuff, and how I was like, I want to listen to it, and you were like, I don't know if they're books that you could listen to. I loved the audiobook. Absolutely loved it. It was great. And I'm hopping on the Tom Bombadil bandwagon.
Yeah,
I'm upset he was
yeah.
not in the
Just
movie.
release the Bombadil cut.
Release the Bombadil cut. Although I understand why. It's one of those because out of all of the characters in the series, he's super lighthearted and jovial, which does not fit the mood or theme of any of the rest of of the story going on. I mean, he's just this ancient being that's been on Middle Earth longer than literally everyone, including the wizards, which are they're angels. The Istari, I think, is what they're called. And like this dude has been here longer than elves, longer than men, longer than the Istari. And it's just like, what? And his
He's just
singing,
chilling, man.
yeah,
He's just doing what he needs to
and
do. Boots of
his
yellow.
and
Boots of
his
yellow, baby.
yeah, boots of yellow and vest of green. He's got is it green vest, boots of yellow?
I think one of it is blue, but I think it's blue hat. I'm not
Is it
sure.
blue hat or is it blue? Is it a blue vest? Because I know he
It's blue.
describes himself. And anyway,
Yeah, it super doesn't matter. But
yeah,
like, yeah.
he just
I'll look it up.
sings. He sings like all the time, and like his singing and it basically has power over things. Like at one point, he commands like the earth and like a tree.
Yeah.
Because
And those are put in the movie.
Pippin gets swallowed by basically a tree, and Tom Bombadil comes along and is like, Old Man Willow is like a grumpy person. Basically release Pippin, and immediately the tree like opens up, and Pippin just like pops out of the ground, and Mary is like halfway underground at that point too.
That's in the movie. They were just like, well, we don't have enough time for Tom Bombadil, so let's just give his shit to Treebeard.
Yeah.
Because like Merry and Pippin and Fangorn like get eaten by the tree, and like there are things that Treebeard's poetry is
Yeah.
just shit Tom Bombadil
Right,
says.
right. Oh, Tom Bombadil, Tom Bombadillo. Well, that whole and what's crazy is like that's like a good like fourth of the book. Like that's actually a really long section, and
That's the
what
one thing people don't understand about like on the way to Rivendell, like how long it actually takes for them to get
yeah
to Rivendell. And like Frodo doesn't leave the Shire for like 18 years after
30.
Bilbo,
It's like
30?
it's like 30 years. He's 33. Well, it's 27 years. Or wait, no. Sorry, it is. You're right. It's like 17 years.
But like, because like Gandalf has to go all the way to Minas Tirith and then like find the documents and then come all the way back,
Yeah.
and it's like going from one end of the country to the other, and like
Right.
but in the movie it's literally like you think it's like maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah. Like the scenes, because it shows Gandalf riding off. It shows him going to Minas Tirith. It shows him going into the library, going into the archives, reading through scrolls, finding this, finding that, finding that. But it does like in the book, it's like, oh yeah, Bilbo runs off, and then Frodo just kind of chills in the Shire for a while. Just chills in the Shire. Gandalf visits every so often. Gandalf suspects that the ring is the One Ring, but he doesn't know for sure yet. He's just
like he says, there's a lot of magic rings.
Yeah.
So it's like it could be any number of rings. And I'd rather ignore it than deal with it.
Yeah, and so he starts to do research, and it takes him like 9 years before he.
It's not been like the ring itself has not been seen by any living eyes,
except for Gandalf, Bilbo, and Frodo are the only ones at this point who have physically seen the ring, and Gollum and Smeagol.
Because good old there was like that whole issue with Elrond and Isildur, and then Isildur died, and then it was thought to be lost, so people didn't realize that Gollum getting the ring like happened, and Bilbo, all that stuff. It just
but yeah, like there's such a long, and then they dip into the old forest, and the way that Merry and Pippin join are totally different from what the movie is.
And it's really funny because you actually come across Farmer Maggot in the book, and he's the complete opposite. He's not chasing him or anything.
Really chill dude. He's like a really friendly guy.
Out when the ring wraiths come, and he's just like, yeah, I don't know where they are, but like you're fucking scary, so get out of here, like that stuff.
Yeah. Farmer Maggot is great, and then they also have the fifth Hobbit that just Fatty Bulger that just stays behind. He's like, nah, I don't want to leave the Shire. I'm good. I got you back here.
In the extended edition, Bilbo like says his name to someone like I think is off screen, and like that's all he gets in the movie.
Wow. And he's such he's actually a really important reason why they don't get caught right away, because at Crick Crick Hollow, is that the house that they go to in was it Brandy Bach is that's the name, that's the last name. What's the city? Brandywine? Is that?
No, that's a real city. I don't know.
Is it?
What you're talking about?
Yeah.
I'm really impressed where Merry deduced like the whole
Pippin,
the ring and Frodo. And
it was Pippin, not Merry. It's Pippin. Yeah, because Pippin was actually I don't know when you read the books, but Pippin was actually closer was actually like really close friends with Bilbo. Like Pippin, Bilbo, and Frodo were like the three that were really close. Merry was a Brandy Bach, which is where Frodo he grew up with Merry, because they're from basically the same family and the same Frodo actually grew up in the house of the Brandy Bachs. And then Sam was just their gardener. Like,
just the gardener.
He's literally just a gardener. That's all Sam is. He's now Bilbo was friends with Sam's father, but Sam himself was just their gardener. That's all he was. But the Gamgee family was friends with the Baggins. But Sam was just unfortunate enough. Now, he was friends with Frodo, but not like super close. Not like how Mary or
Okay. Give me a sec. Do you hear me?
Yeah. Make sure you Enyacaster is still.
Yes, it's still going.
Okay, cool, great. But yeah, Sam just had the unfortunate circumstance of overhearing Gandalf and Frodo talking, and Gandalf was like, "Well, shit. Guess what, Sam? You get to go along now too." And then they developed this plan for Frodo to like move, because he actually sells Bag End to like the Sackville. Yeah, the Sackville Bagginses.
Because they think that Bilbo still has some treasure somewhere in the house from his adventure.
And so Frodo just sells him the house. He's like, well, I'm probably never coming back, so why not sell the house and take the money and use that as kind of profit for... And then he moves into a house, which is a Crick Hollow, I believe is what they call the house. But it takes him a long-ass fucking time to get there because he has to stay off the roads to avoid the Black Riders, which at this point, you don't... I mean, I shouldn't say you don't know, sure. But...
Like, the movie with the narration at the very beginning with Galadriel pretty blatantly says that the ring wraiths are the 9 kings of men that have the rings, but, like, you don't understand that, like, at all at first. They're just, like, really scary.
It's mentioned, so Gandalf explains the origin of the rings. He says that there were 7 dwarf, 9 human rings, but the humans were corrupt. But that's all Gandalf says. That's it. He just says, there were 9 rings made for humans, and Sauron is the lord of those 9 rings.
And that was interesting because, like, I realized at one point I was just like, okay, I know who has all 3 elf rings.
Yep.
I know where all 9 human rings are.
Mm-hmm.
Where are the fucking dwarf rings?
Which is explained in the books.
Yeah, I looked them up.
There are only 3 remaining dwarf rings. The rest were consumed.
4 of them were destroyed by dragons.
Yep. The 4 of them were consumed by dragons, and dragon fire is one of the things that can destroy a ring.
But Smaug was famously like the last dragon.
Yes.
So like when Smaug died, But there's actually, I think it's in the Silm or in the like volumes of Middle Earth. Sauron approaches like I can't remember which dwarf, but like I think
it's Dain.
Oh, Dain, yeah, that's right, Dain. Yeah, and he says
it's the ring
wraiths. You
can
have some of the rings.
Yeah,
and Dain's just like, no.
He doesn't. Well, he doesn't refuse or accept. He says, "Give me some time to think about it," because Dain is still king under the mountain. So the Lonely Mountain is full of dwarves, which is where Gimli, son of Gloin, which Gloin was one of Bilbo's companions, along with Dain, and I think there's only 3 of them left living out of the 12 dwarves, because of course.
Well, yeah, because they're at the fellowship meeting.
Yeah, it's like 60 years after Bilbo's adventures. And so
it's just weird because you would think that most of them, like, I don't think any of them died of old age. I think they were all like killed randomly.
Most of them were killed
to be alive in Moria.
Yeah. So there were 3 of them, like the twins, were killed in Moria.
No, one of the twins died in the end of The Hobbit.
That's right. Okay, so it was one of the twins goes with
Keely or Keely.
Yeah, one of them dies in Moria along. I haven't read The Hobbit,
Balin
so I'm
the one that Balin is the big guy in Moria that dies in Moria.
So Balin dies, one of the twins, and then I forget which other one, but. Anyway, there's like 3 remaining from Bilbo's. Dain, Gloin, and I forget which other one is still surviving. That they say it in the book, but I honestly forget.
Yeah, it's easy enough to look up. Just like it's called the one wiki to rule them all.
Right.
Just like that shit's got like everything you need.
But it was just, but yeah, the ring wraiths, because Gloin is talking about it, because Gimli hardly ever says a thing at the Council of Elrond. Gloin is the one talking almost the whole time, because Gloin was sent by Dan. And also one thing that kind of was really funny to me is, unlike in the movie, Gimli and Legolas super chill right off the bat, because Dayan had already made friends with the elves of Mirkwood.
Thranduil, I think, is the guy over them. Yeah,
and so like they were already cordial and friendly, and so they were like, Gimli just hardly ever says anything until they in Elrond. There isn't, the famous scene, you have my sword, you have my bow, my axe. No, Elrond is like,
it's a real chill like council scene. But yeah.
Elrond's like, Aragorn, you're going. Gimli, you're young enough. You go, and Legolas.
I guess. Yeah. It's really funny because I didn't understand the reason I really like the reason I really like Tom Bombadil is because I think it's either Gandalf or Elrond who says it. I can't remember. But when Frodo's like, because one notable thing about Tom Bombadil is because he predates the ring. It has the ring doesn't.
And when they meet Tom Bombadil, Frodo actually gives him the ring and he puts it on. Nothing happens. He's just like, oh, pretty ring. That's basically what Tom Bombadil says. Oh, pretty ring, and then takes it off and hands it back to Frodo as if it was no big deal.
And good old Frodo suggests, well, let's fucking give it to Tom. He has power over the ring.
It wasn't. It wasn't Frodo. It was one of the other members. I forget which one. I think it's one of but because I remember you telling me that it was Frodo, and then when that part in the book came up, it was one of the other members. I forget which one. It may have been one of the dwarves or one of the other elves that was there. But they were because Frodo and Bilbo both recount their tales with the ring. And so Bilbo has to admit where he got the ring from, and it's the first time he's ever told anyone where he got the ring. And then Frodo recounts his story, and of course he tells them about Tom Bombadil. And in that scene, one of them is like, "Why don't we find Tom Bombadil since he says he has power over the ring?" And Gandalf says, corrects him.
Says, no, the ring has no power over
Tom Bombadil.
And that's when I finally understood. I was like, oh. Okay, I get
Then Gandalf proceeds to explain Tom Bombadil only has one master, and that is himself. He said, even if we did take it to Tom Bombadil, he won't understand the because it means so little to him, that he'll either forget it or lose it. And Gandalf is like, which that can't happen.
It's really funny because there's a lot of Tolkien scholars really the hell was that?
I don't know.
No, it looked like something ran across my yard, or it was a low-flying bird. That was some creepypasta shit. Good old Tolkien scholars try to say well, what is Tom Bombadil? What's he symbolic of? Which is really funny because Tolkien hated allegory. He was just like the elves are elves. The elves
hated it. Yeah, absolutely hated it.
But there's an idea that Tom Bombadil is supposed to signify the reader for two reasons. Because the reader cannot be corrupted by anything in the story because they have power over the story. They can start and stop the story whenever they want. But also that Elrond inherently does not trust Tom Bombadil, as he would not trust the reader in general.
Yeah.
It's just this is too important for it to be trusted to just some random Joe Schmo who picks up a book, that kind of thing. So that's a neat little thing.
Huh. Yeah, but it was just there's a lot. Now, one thing I will say, the movie though, absolutely amazing adaptation. Almost of course they had to dramatize a lot of things, but I mean, with the exception of little things here and there, almost a spot on adaptation.
And that is actually a very harsh talking point for a lot of people, to the point I took a fantasy lit class with Anthony, and
was it Mr. Reed?
I made a joke.
I took his folklore class.
I made a joke about how Aragorn was not trying to be king of Gondor. Like he was just kind of just like avoiding it.
It's
And then
not true
good
though.
old
He actually
and like
yearned
in
for
the
it.
book he's very much looking for it, but he wants to be sure.
Yeah,
Like
well, it's not necessarily he wants it, but he yearns for it. It's one of those things like because he's an outcast. I mean, he's been outcasted by his people, and it's like, man, I would love to just be with my be a part.
But good old in the movie, that's not as strictly the case.
Right.
And then a girl in the class was just like, oh, so I guess you've never read the book. And then the professor went on a really big tangent about how he said Peter Jackson ruined Lord of the Rings, and like now like everyone who thinks they're, and it was very it sucked because I really liked him, but like he was very gatekeeping, where he was just like, you're only a Lord of the Rings fan if you've read the books, like because the movies don't count. Like you don't know these characters unless you've read the books. And like I will gladly kick Peter Jackson's ass any day of the week. And then that's when I stopped caring about the class. Like I was super into it, and then that day happened like 2/3 in, and I was like, cool, fuck it.
That's so unfortunate.
Yeah, because like it's just like you can definitely have your opinions. I totally respect that. I get it. Like don't get me wrong, but like don't like belittle me, because that was my entry into the series.
It was probably an entry for like 80% of people, because those books, very old books. I mean, Tolkien wrote them. He started writing them in the 30s. Like the 1930s, and they were published in the 40s, the 50s.
Well, so like it's so technically, when he fought in World War I to bide his time, he just like created these stories.
Yeah.
So like he started working on them in like the teens.
Yeah.
But then like The Hobbit, he told The Hobbit to his son Christopher, who died just at the beginning of the year. And then Christopher was pointing out discrepancies, saying just like, oh, you said Glowin's vest was like gold yesterday. So he was like, ah, fuck. So he started writing it down. And when he finished writing it, he was just like, oh, I guess I could just submit this as a book. And like it was really cool. But like The Hobbit is very much not like Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit's like a
The Hobbit is an adventure. Yeah. The Hobbit is an adventure.
The Lord of the Rings is a fake history of a fake language.
Yeah. And it's funny because at the end, in the audiobook, at the very end in the end credits, it actually the narrator reads off the passage that Tolkien wrote, explaining, because we always got questions like, is this based off of, is there any parallels with World War II? So he read off Tolkien's thing like, nope, this was purely because I have a fascination for history and I needed to address some things. And it's like,
that part a lot.
Wow.
He was just like, I love that part a lot because he was just like, if the One Ring were the atomic bomb, then like I would have had like Elrond try to use it against like Saruman.
Mm-hmm.
Like that kind of stuff.
He says that it would have been taken to Gondor. It would have been used as a weapon. It would have been yada 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 yada. He's like, and he comes up like on the spot with like a whole nother story that he obviously has thought out. And then it's like, but that wasn't my story. He's like, that's not what it is.
Yeah, that's not what it is.
Yeah,
I think it would be really great if we kind of wrap this up now, because I know that at least Jonathan
and Alex
has a lot, like all of us. I think all of us have some sort of thing about it. And so I think like just a full, straight up, just fully loaded
just
Lord of the Rings episode,
just a Tolkien episode, because hopefully I plan to read The Two Towers this week. The audiobooks are roughly 19 hours long, and I can get through that in about a week. Because of my job. I'm by myself most of the time, so.
And I'll refamiliarize myself with like the text, and then just pull out some of my favorite little things. And then I'll also I'll good old and of course I'm sure you will too, but I'll text Brian and just be like, hey, what are some things that that are like you like during like Tolkien podcasts and stuff that you just wish people would bring up? Like
hell, we could even bring Brian in, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's got Discord, so like,
Yeah.
I would I would clear that with Alex, because
Yeah.
like but like, I'm totally cool with that. Like, I'm totally cool for like an all-inclusive
Yeah.
Tolkien episode. Um,
We'll keep
yeah,
that in the banks then. So yeah,
yeah,
we'll wrap up here. We won't get too far in depth. We touched a little bit on the Fellowship of the Ring,
yeah,
which we only got through about half of it too. We didn't even
yeah.
we got to the Council of Elrond. We didn't even address anything after that.
Yeah,
We didn't even address anything after that.
yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have anything else that you want to talk about, or you want to kind of? Is this a?
Yeah. No, like
All right.
I'm super stoked for like getting in depth on the Lord of the
Yes,
Rings stuff.
because hopefully, I would love to be able, before we do a full Tolkien episode.
Yeah.
Of course, I watched at least the first two movies, but I would love to read all of the books before we do that. Now, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, and I'm not going to be concerned about it. But like I said, I just finished Fellowship on, I think it was Friday. It was either Thursday. It was Friday on the way home from work. I finished it.
Yeah. Maybe we can just set like a date, like just saying like, hey, sometime in late July.
Yeah.
This is, and so like people have time to not only like
we don't even know if Alex is for those curious, Alex is still deployed up for the National Guard right now, still dealing with.
He was undeployed, then he got redeployed like after like 2 days. So it just
So he's still doing all the protests are still going on.
National.
Yeah. So that's still happening. So that is where he's at. So hopefully, maybe we can just wait for him to return. And like I said, I know Jonathan would love to be in on this too. I really, all of us. I know all of us are. Because I think it was a big thing, because that was like our child development years when those movies came out.
Happening when we were, because it was like,
I was 6 years old when the first movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I saw the first one in theaters, but I know I saw the second and third one in theaters.
So I was just to give backstory. It's really interesting because I talked to Jonathan about this. My dad would tell like the story of Lord of the Rings to me and my brother orally.
I think you've talked about this before.
The movies or the read the books, which is what Tolkien intended.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't want the story to be like read out loud or adapted. He wanted it to be remembered and taught. And
much
so
like
that's how
folklore,
I
stories have been passed down orally for millennia.
Yeah.
I mean,
some people actually say, just a neat little thing to think about. Some people say that writing is an error in evolution, that it actually stunted a lot of stuff. But just something to think about. Alrighty, everybody.
Yep. I was gonna say, we'll call it here. If you have enjoyed, at this point, you might be wondering, hey, I just binge listened to 3 episodes because we haven't been uploading. Whenever this does get uploaded, it'll be uploaded with several episodes all at once. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment. We will try and read through them. Drop a like. Follow the podcast. If you're listening to this on anywhere you do listen to podcasts, just drop a follow. Rate us. If you have enjoyed. If you haven't enjoyed, sorry, I can't help you. This is what we do every week. So if you haven't enjoyed it, just leave a review, leave a good review anyway, but feel free to never come back. Anyway, y'all, we will catch you next week. Peace.
Next week, bye.